paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations. All in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted. Hey, let me tell you a story, all right? Back, I guess it was maybe 2 years ago. I think this, maybe 3 years ago in October or so, I got a really nice invitation to come speak at the Blennerhassett Hotel in West Virginia. This is really close to the Point Pleasant where the Mothman was. So, of course, I had to go to the Mothman Museum, right? Then I went to the hotel. Beautiful hotel, incredible. Met so many amazing folks in this place because they got, I don't know how the hell they invited me. They got the best of the best in there. I was really impressed. In fact, I met several people who's been semi-regular guests here on the show. So I got to meet a lot of people, and they had a ghost hunt. I had participated in helping to lead one. And the next night I went on with this group, and this group is called Iron City Paranormal out of Pittsburgh. But they had done so much there in the Blennerhassett. It was pretty wild. We went to one room with the spirit of a serial killer in it. Not a nice spirit. Let me tell you, I've dealt with some murderous spirits, I should say, people who had committed the ultimate crime in life. Missouri State Penitentiary and of course, Gasconade County Courthouse, Franklin County Courthouse. Been several jails. The old jail where Frank James had stayed. It was a lot of these places, and I have met mostly decent spirits, but there are some who are just mean and as nasty as they were in life, and that's the one we were dealing with. Iron City Paranormal did just a magnificent job, and their co-founder Derrick Smith just has written a book. And the book is called All Monsters Are Human, an unsettling collection of horror stories. Now, these stories have truth in them, but as Derrick says, kind of a historical fiction. He filled in the areas where there wasn't a lot of hard, solid evidence, which is not a problem at all, of course. Got to have a good story to sell the book, right? But I've got Derrick here to tell us a few things about murderers, killers, and human monsters. Derrick, how's it going?
Oh, it's going. Staying busy. Thank you for having me on, for starters.
Oh, thank you. I forgot to mention, you are now writing for Onyx Magazine, just as I have.
Yep. I've been doing monthly articles, kind of releasing and sharing some of our investigations. Blennerhassett Hotel was, in fact, one of those. And our friend Joseph Eisel, the serial killer that's held up in room 409 there, definitely did make the magazine. But yeah, we're sharing kind of some of our findings, some of our research and history of each location as well.
Now, I did an article for Onyx on the conference, and talked a little bit about the ghost hunt afterwards. I had some pictures and all. But you really went much deeper into that part of it than I possibly could.
Yeah, I mean, first off, that conference was a lot of fun. And
it was, yeah.
We participated in it twice, and I do believe this coming October we're going to be going back. Do the same thing. So we've had some really cool things happen there. Places that like you're talking about, this room 409, where we had a lot of very strange things happen, knocking noises, flashlights going on and off, cat balls, all the way up to, I don't know if you were in the room when it happened to us, but the table physically was like smacked and it knocked a flashlight over physically.
Yeah, I think I was in there for that one.
That was intense, but it was pretty incredible. Although I think there were just so many people in that particular room that we didn't really get any answers. We actually felt more of the anger and negativity of him than anything. But during our second visit, and I'm happy to show this picture with you later, just so you can have it and see it. It was a thermal image of us walking around up on the 4th floor. Now, there's stories of two different people, two different shadows that have kind of just walked, disappeared, reappeared. And we were just walking, nothing crazy. We were walking with our spirit box with, I believe there were 4 of us. One of us was holding the thermal. One of us was holding the SLS camera, kind of just a full gambit of everything.
Sure. And
in the thermal camera, we actually, we got some darker spots, colder spots. We had shared it with the people since it was a 2-day event. The next day, we shared it with some people, and they're pointing it out to us. They're like, "Do you see the detail on this?" Granted, we didn't have time to really go over everything at that point.
Of course,
this stuff takes weeks to go through, if not months sometimes, depending on the volume. And they're looking at it, and they were actually an artist, and they gave us this rendering of what they saw, like an outline of the figures. And it was a man and a woman. The man was wearing a bowler cap, and the woman had one of those bigger hoop dresses.
Yeah.
Walking down the hallway together, it looked like. And it's like, okay,
oh, wow.
Putting some of these stories together, things that people had heard. And it's like, wait a second, these people were together. This is a couple, and we actually were able to see that firsthand. And it was wild. I mean, we hoped to get some kind of name, some kind of identification as to who they are, but to this point, seeing that right there, moving down a hallway right in front of us was incredible in its own right.
Well, I may be wrong, but didn't Adra talk about a ghost in a bowler hat somewhere in there?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ones, and he's actually been seen in the basement as well. And the first time we were there, we actually caught an SLS figure with the the stick figure appearance, with where it maps things. We actually caught a figure in the basement the first time around of someone just kind of poking their head out, going back, poking their head out and going back. And it was a stick figure. You can make out the head, the shoulders, the arm, like one arm, 1 foot. But we're under the interpretation that was him as well in the basement. So he just kind of wanders. He's kind of free to go anywhere he wants. But yeah, I think we experienced him both times. Now, the story is that this bowler hat man is Joseph Isel. But I will tell you that from our experiences, the atmosphere around him, the energy that he gives, it's not the same person. It's definitely not the same person, just because of the sensations that you feel in room 409 when you know that he is there versus the ones where you're experiencing this guy kind of off in the corner, just watching you out of curiosity, walking down the hall, minding his own business, completely different. So
could that be residual then?
It could be. The only reason I would think that it is not is because he was in the basement. If it's the same person, he was noticing us, recognizing that there was something going on, and kind of out of curiosity poking his head out and watching us from a distance. I don't believe that if it's residual, that they can be, that these energies can actually move with or interact with another spirit or another energy. Now, I know there's a lot of interpretations. Some people say that they can come in pairs, even in trios. But being that they were walking down the hallway together, almost arm in arm at that point, to me, it seems like it's intelligent. It's interacting with another energy. And I do it all the time. I don't call them spirits. I don't call them ghosts. I call them energies, because that's really the only thing that you can definitively go off of. And a way to explain these things is because it's energy. Energy is all around us. And when they take a form like this, it's just me personally. I'm not saying that it's in the field or everybody should call it this. That's just what I call them. I call them energies. So I don't know what you want to call them, but that's kind of my interpretation of these. And to me, the intelligence is there when he's walking down the hallway with someone else, when he's poking his head out. So I would explain it more as intelligent than any kind of residual remnant energy.
The term residual to me is a recording. It's not really there. It is
Correct.
not has any consciousness at all.
It's a record.
But could it be a record of two people walking down that?
And that's it is a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's why people have explained that they can come in pairs, they can come in trios, because those moments can be captured in time. So to answer your question, yeah, it could have been. It's just when we interpret these things and put these things together, we don't believe so. But there's always a possibility.
And preponderance of the evidence for me is what determines it.
Correct.
An orb is nothing. A preponderance of the evidence, the orb is over the meter going off on request.
Correct.
Now you're getting evidence.
Correct. I mean, the orbs, that's a whole different story, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
Like that's an hour-long conversation in its own right. But yeah, no, I agree. Like where it's actually making some kind of communication or effort openly, and it's not just a piece of dust flying around. Exactly. We've made the mistake before where we'll put a camera on the ground because there's no other place to put it. And hey, guess what? It's a million orbs. We'll have people telling us, "Oh, did you see this?" I'm like, no, that's just dust flying around.
Exactly. Yeah, you get where you hate to break their hearts, man.
A lot of the time, I don't like to do it. I don't like to say there's nothing there. And, that's the same when we go into, we've done private residences where people are getting harassed. And we're never going to leave a location and say, you're crazy. This didn't happen. Nothing's going on here. If nothing happens for us, we'll say, nothing happened that night. There's really not much more we can do to help you. We can sage, we can do this, that, but we're never going to be the people that say you're absolutely insane. You didn't experience anything. It's a water drip. Like that's not how we operate. And I don't think that's how the field should be,
Our discussion here has triggered an idea that I'm curious about, and maybe you know more about it. So would a residual spirit, which is a recording, actually have heat that can be sensed on there?
I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, these recordings, these replays, however you want to consider them, it still is going to take energy. There's going to be an output. There's going to be a change in the energy field in some way. So to say that it could be a heat signature, why not? There's nothing that's proven it's to say otherwise. So it could certainly be. One thing, on that subject though, about the heat and the cold spots and those kinds of things, one way that I like to explain the cold spots to people that are just, they don't really have experience with it, or they've heard a story or however it is. I actually like to explain the cold spots, not necessarily as a cold figure or that energy being cold. It's actually this energy pulling energy from something else to make the other object colder. So you'll see these cold spots, and it's actually whatever this is actually right next to it, pulling the energy from that thing to create the cold spot.
The same way they pull energy out of a battery to
it's exactly right. It's exactly right. Yeah. Whenever the battery is drained like that, it's the exact same thing. Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about this serial killer in room.
Yeah.
What room was it?
409.
409. Yeah.
And it's a nice suite. I'll tell you that.
It really is. It's got a little upstairs to it.
Nice
it's
two-story.
Really nice. Yeah.
So, I mean,
what's the background on this one?
So the building itself is actually a conglomeration of a few buildings, actually. And this Joseph Isel is actually, he was in the area in, I don't remember the exact date, but I do know it was 1860s.
Okay.
He was arrested in 68, I think. And this was after his fourth attempt at murder. But at that point, after he was arrested, he had actually confessed to 3 other murders in the Parkersburg area. Okay. He was executed. If I remember correctly, it was a public execution. But they did have him executed there for his murders. And the room that he is known for, it was more or less just the location he stayed most of the time.
Okay.
And it's kind of in the back corner. It's kind of away from everybody. And I do believe that he went under a different name when he was signing in, which is part of the reason that no one knew he was there. The name that he had gone by was John Schaefer.
Okay.
That was actually the name that he had kind of gone by as just publicly. So he did have an alias, he did commit the crimes in the areas, and he did stay right there. There's certainly proof and documentation of him being there.
He was a German immigrant, if I remember correctly.
Yes, he was, and I do know that he fled the army. He deserted, and that's actually how he ended up coming here. And when he came here, he actually just married the first woman that he could. He paid her off, from my understanding.
Okay.
Again, no documentation of something like that, but in order to get away from the war, get away from all the violence that was happening over there, he actually came here, married someone. I don't recall who. But that was kind of his way of settling in here, of grounding himself here. Okay. And he, as far as the murders themselves go, it was all about money. He was trying to pay off debt, and anytime that he found someone that he thought that he could get away with stealing their money and then just disappear into the night, which he did. I mean, it worked for him, but right. it was for money. It was to pay off these debts, to try to, again, dig himself out of these holes and get away from this negativity and everything. But I do believe that his kind of MO was a hatchet, and that was also how he was caught, because as he was fleeing from that fourth murder, he had tossed the hatchet and just kept running. So that's kind of what tied him to the entire case.
Okay. There was something, and it was a long day when I was doing this, but there was something across the street. There had been a shop or something that he had something to do with.
Yeah, I think it was just a merchant shop, and actually I believe that's one of the guys that he had owed money to, that he was in debt to, and I want to say it was a coal miner that just owned some merchant shop, but he borrowed money constantly from him, never paid him back, and he figured that was his best, just getting rid of him, taking what he had and moving on. So it was all in the area. He did.
And I think that ghost is also reportedly still around.
So people claim that. People believe that. But from my understanding is that it's mainly just shadows. There's no actual communication. Now, we've talked briefly in the past about a well-known spirit there of a bowler hat man. Yeah. He is one of the supposed identities is the merchant from across the street that is still looking for his killer mainly. Again, none of that is ever really 100% documented. It's just one of the tales that have kind of stuck with it. And romantically speaking, the killer and the victim locked in the same place for eternity. That's your story right there.
And that would be a good one. Absolutely.
That's absolutely true.
When he got caught and convicted, did he say anything before he was executed about it? So
I believe in his last words he did have something to say, but to be completely honest, I don't remember what it was. Okay. I do remember that the crowd that was there, they all just kept yelling "murderer, murderer." So from what was documented about the public execution is that no one could hear his words of what he was saying. From my recollection, it had nothing to do with him being innocent or anything along those lines. But it's all, the only people that could hear it were the actual executioners, the one pulling the cord, and but no one else could hear it, just because the entire crowd was so outraged that they just kept yelling "murderer," and that's all that mattered to them, is that he was gone.
How many victims do we know of, or did he confess to?
That he confessed to 4. And I want to say that he was nicknamed the Highway Killer or something along those lines.
Okay.
Just because it was around that main highway there that he had that he committed the murders all around Parkersburg. And who's to say how many he actually had, but he was really only convicted for that one. Just to get rid of them, basically.
Okay.
But it's supposedly 4 victims.
Well, the night I was there, we had the knockings. We had a lot of K2 hits. What other evidence have you guys come up with in that room?
Well, one thing that we don't like to provoke. We never like to. We don't like to do the Zach Baggins thing and poke and push, especially a serial killer. So. But one thing that we did do is by calling him by his other names. He actually responded decently well to John, his pen name, basically.
Okay.
Where he would light things up kind of on command to let us know that he was there. But when we started calling him Joseph, or anytime we incorporated his last name of Isel, you could feel things change. You could sense things getting much more negative, and the flashlights going heavier, the cat ball starting to move, the footsteps almost as if they were pacing. Mm-hmm. The one moment that really kind of threw us off was when we had a flashlight sitting on a table that was helping us get answers to our questions, and in a moment's notice, we called him out. We just said something about Joseph Isel. If there's anything that you can tell us, we're not being disrespectful. It didn't matter. All of a sudden, there was this loud bang on the table. The table shakes. The flashlight falls over. I mean, it was intense, because I was actually one of the ones sitting at the table. So for this to happen right in front of me, man, I don't jump often. I mean, I'm kind of it's at this point it's some of these things that are expected, but that definitely had me jumping there. It was startling and unsettling, to say the least, that something could cause that much force. To physically move the table, shake it so much where the flashlight would fall over. So that was one of the more intense moments that he had given us at that point.
Okay. You have now dealt with the spirit of at least one murderer. So you've got a book out, which is called The Monsters Are Human. Am I right?
All Monsters Are Human, yes. Yeah. And this is a long-term project for me, where I love research. I love digging into the history of places. And for our team, that's kind of my, one of my specialties, where I'll do the research on the places. And some of our sensitives, I won't give them all the information, but I will kind of help things move along, because I know certain things that they may not. Okay. So this book, from the way that I like to explain it, is based in historical fiction. And what I mean by that is that I've done a lot of research on the locations that I talk about in this book. I have done a lot of one of the phrases that stuck with me. I was reading a Stephen King book about a couple years ago, and someone had asked him one time, why do you write about writers? And his response was, you write about things you know. And that is the most realistic approach to writing, and people can know it, they can feel it, they can kind of connect with it. So I like to write about things that I know. So a lot of these locations, I have been there. I've physically been to these places. There's a lot of stories that I actually experienced. I take my own personal experiences and put them in these stories. People that I know. Now, names I've changed just in case, but the people are real. They're based in reality, and I kind of put these things together, and I reach a point where the historical aspects of it do end, and that's where my mind just wanders. And what could happen? Is there a potential of this happening? And a lot of the time, I try to ground it in reality. Now, my reality, as you can see, is more paranormal reality, but so things are a little bit farther fetched than some things may be. But I actually, one of my favorite moments is when I was writing one of these stories about the Dixmont Insane Asylum. I did a lot of research on it. There's an entire section actually of the historical aspects of this old building that was torn down. But when I was younger, one of my first attempts at the paranormal was to break into this building. I was a stupid kid. I'm never going to do that again. Never break into any place. We always like to say it's not worth it,
Yeah.
It's really not. And it takes the fun out of a lot of it when you're constantly like, am I going to get caught?
Right.
So we went up to this place, again, stupid kid in high school, and me and two of my friends get up to the front door, and we're avoiding, they literally have explosive devices sitting there because it was due for demolition.
Okay.
And we're getting up there. They have armed guards walking around. Like, this is all true. This has happened to multiple people that I've talked to. Like, hey, I did the same thing. And we got up to the front door, and my friend's nose just started gushing blood. Like, he's not prone to nosebleeds, not at all, and he looks down and he's literally catching blood in his hand. Like, we got to go back to the car. Like, I can't go in like this. So we turn around, we get back to the car, we get the lights on, we're ready to sit there and try to stop the bleeding in some way. And we get back there, there's no blood.
Oh, wow.
It was insane. And, that was kind of the end of our night. We didn't actually go in the building, but what if we did? So that's kind of where the one story picks up, is where do we go from here? What would have happened if we got into the building?
Okay.
And I shared this story with my friend, and at the end of, I had to tie it in, like, he blacked out. He didn't know what was going on. And so he gets to that point and he's like, wait a second, did we go in? Like, am I forgetting something? Did I lose my mind here? So I love that reaction. And so that's how I try to ground my stories, is some semblance of reality. And it helps me with my research process, because if I can reach a point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper on this part. Well, then I found something that's completely unexpected, but something that's real, something that's documented. And it's like, holy crap, I didn't know that happened, So those are eye-opening moments where I can actually incorporate those into some of these stories.
Hey, I want to hear more about some of the stories if you can share with me, but I have to slip away for a quick break. So hang loose, Derrick. I'll be right back.
You got it.
Folks, if you haven't read the UNX magazine, you can join the UNX network, and I think Derrick and I will talk a little bit about that towards the end. But you can get the magazine sent to you by email once a month, or I think it's now every 2 months. But you got to check this thing out. His writing is amazing. It's incredible, and I love the history. And like I've said before, without history, it's just a campfire tale. But there is other things to talk about, isn't there? This here is one of them.
The UNX Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unnext Network website at unnextnetwork.com. That's unnextnetwork.com. The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unnext Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unnextmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unnextmedia.com or amazon.com.
All right, friends, like I said, we'll talk more about joining the Unnext Network and such as that after the conversation. But I want to bring Derrick back up and talk some more about the book, which is All Monsters Are Human. And I have to agree with him. All the years I've been doing this, it's the living I'm afraid of. Go ahead, Derrick. So what else is going on? You did this formal mental asylum, was it?
Yeah, it was the Dixmont Insane Asylum, and just as a kind of brief history of it, it was actually in use up until the 90s, and it wasn't torn down until the mid 2000s. Well, I don't even know how to explain that anymore. Around 2006, 2007, early 2000s, I guess you would say. They actually tried to build a Walmart on the property.
Oh.
There were constant hillslides, landslides, things that just kept interrupting. They ultimately abandoned the project. Some people that go up there still say that it's because they had messed with the gravesite for the insane asylum, and that they are kind of paying them back and not letting them do anything with the land. But there was a lot of torturous kind of methods, the kind of, I don't want to say stereotypical, but it really was, where they would do a lot of the cold water methods, where they would almost drown someone. They did a lot of the lobotomies there, a lot of just seclusions, and they thought these things were good. And at the time when these types of buildings were constructed, it was the forefront of what we thought as a human society needed to be done for these people. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, they started opening their doors for anybody that the family just didn't want. They could. There was a story about a kid who, time that she got emotionally distraught, that she would cry and not stop crying. The family didn't know what to do with her. She was about 7 years old. They dropped her off at the asylum and just left. They left her there, and that's the kind of people that they would take in at these places. Yeah. These nurses that are trying to treat these, clinically ill people were then left to be babysitters and raise these children. And then on top of it, as time went on, the criminals would be placed there as well. So you start combining the children, the elderly, the criminals. You have one just despicable pot of people that you don't know what to do with. There's no one individual professional that can deal with all of those people. And I have a lot of close friends and family members that work in all these different fields, and they've told me in the past, like, you can't do it. You need a lot of support people. You need a lot of management. You need a lot of specialists. And A, they didn't have it back then. And B, they didn't care. This was just a place for the state to hide people. And I can't believe this kind of thing lasted as long as it did.
I recently was in the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, and
that's a perfect example.
Wearing the shirt for it right now, but weird. But they had the same. They said, some guy would just drop his wife off and say, "Yeah, she's crazy," and she's stuck there now.
That's right, and that's all it took.
Weird.
It's just somebody with the control. That they could do whatever they wanted, and it's crazy to me that was actually able to. Somebody could do that. That's how they dealt with it.
I'm right with you. Now, the next town from where I'm at, and I actually do a ghost tour there.
Yeah.
Has it was a small. They call it a sanitarium, but it was upstairs of another building. They only had a very few people at a time.
Sure.
They were doing the insulin shock therapy, electric shock therapy, water. But in my research, the doctors were all very good and decent people.
Right.
They were doing what science told them was the right thing to do. I found no evidence of lobotomies, but they were doing what you and I would consider torture, right up there with the Nazis.
Sure. But that was accepted. It was accepted then. And that was, like you said, these were good people. They were people who thought that they were helping, who wanted to do good for these people. And in the long run, you see what kind of devastation that ultimately brings. And what else can you do with that? There's really nothing else that you can actually do for to help those kinds of people. And looking back on it, it's like, they were despicable. These were horrible people. Well, no, they were doctors. They were
some of them.
Right. Yeah. That's very true. Some of them were.
The guy who come up with the transorbital with an ice pick through the eye was.
Well, you know what? They still thought they were helping, and that was the early days of that kind of thing. And it sucks. Yeah. It's sad. It's heartbreaking what they did to these people. But they did think that they were helping, and that's kind of the sad part of it.
But sometimes they were doing this to children who just needed to grow up a little bit.
Correct. You're absolutely right. And they just didn't know better. Or, like I was saying, there was so much of lack of funding where they just needed to move on, get to the next patient, get to the next room. And that's really ultimately all it was.
Your book talks about this place, correct?
That's correct. It's actually my jumping off point in the book. It's the first story. It's one of those ones where I've compiled research for quite some time. And I tried to put it I break it up into history, so you almost can tell where the real documentation stops, and some of the more ghost stories are shared stories. They actually happened to some people. They were shared from some of those guards that would be stationed there. There were tales of some of the people that had worked there that shared ghost stories that I've seen old local newspaper articles on, that I actually took some of those things and used. So it's my way of keeping some of this history alive, as well as putting my kind of personal spin on some of these things.
Was most of these stories based around the Pittsburgh area then?
So, yes and no. A lot of these stories do go into some of the darker side of people, and I base them around the areas that I know, but some of the areas were not necessarily called out, as in I didn't say this is occurring in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Rather, it was the dark backwoods that I know of as Beaver County, but you could think about it as you're a neighborhood that you know of. So I tried to keep it open-ended where you could kind of connect with it in such a way that it does still have some kind of meaning to people as you share these stories. There's even things. There's one of the ones that I've done is the story is called The Collector.
Okay.
And this actually started with some of my fascination with some things that we were gifted during paranormal investigations. We would actually, some of the locations would give us things such as Oh man, Martinsburg Roundhouse. The owners actually gave us a railroad tie to take home. One of the nails that would go into that, and so they actually gifted it to us, and I still have it in my bag back here in the closet. And I just started taking some of these things with us. There was a point where a woman that I worked with found out that I was into this pretty heavily. It was early on during our investigations. She gifted me this box. It was covered in wax, and it was sealed. I mean, it was still sealed. She found it in her son's bedroom. Her son had recently passed away from an overdose. She claimed that he was into some pretty dark and heavy things, as in the occult. She didn't know what a lot of this stuff was. She gifted it to me. And I go and I send a picture to Dan, our co-founder, and my good friend. So I kind of share all of these things with him. So I sent him this picture of this thing. It's very strange. And honestly, it's right behind me still. But it's if you know anything or heard of a Dybbuk box.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
That's exactly what it was. So there's this, it's just a little wooden case. I think what it is like an old jewelry box. And you can hear things in it, like you can shake it. There's definitely something in it. Supposedly with these Dybbuk boxes, what you're supposed to have an earth element, you're supposed to have a crystal, usually some kind of prayer. And depending on the religion and faith that this is based on, there could be a whole bunch of different things. My sister actually bought me a fake one on eBay, and I opened it just to see what was in it. Thank God it was fake. But it had an old nail, a construction nail with those old flat heads. It had a vial of dirt. It had a piece of leather. It had a little bottle that had a piece of paper on. And so that's kind of the premise of these Dybbuk boxes.
That almost sounds like a mojo bag.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could take it in that direction, absolutely. But so what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to trap some kind of, it doesn't even have to be evil, but some kind of spirit, some kind of energy in this thing. And it's you seal it with a wax seal all around it, so it can't get out. That it's still in there, that it's not broken. And we've taken this box to conventions that we have. It was actually a Blennerhassett, like you were talking about, where we had a woman come up to us and she was kind of shaking it, moving it back and forth to her. And actually, we could hear it at the time. It sounded like there was some kind of hairy little animal, almost a hamster. If you can picture this hairy little thing moving it back and forth, it's like a dull thud almost as you're moving it. Never happened to us before. We had never heard something like that before. It never felt that way before. Anyway, long story short, I used some of these items that we've truly collected, like I said, behind me here, and I kind of compiled them all into this story. I just take it a next step, and then I start tying it together with some well-known like movie objects and props and things that you can relate to just as a horror fan on a certain aspect. But so it's things like that kind of resonate with me, where I kind of just take things to the next level, but it's based in reality. If you read this story and you go through it, there's maybe 10 things listed there. I can almost guarantee you 6 of them I have in my possession, still to this day. But I turned them into this story. Whereas what if, what could happen? Okay. So it's things like that I hold close to myself, because there are things like that have happened to me that still happening to me. I mean, there were stories that I have in here that I've actually told of. I was engaged probably a decade ago. She broke it off with me. It was bad. It was it ended me for that period of time. I was down and out for about 6-8 months there.
Okay.
And during that time, I was out of it. I was kind of doing things that I wouldn't normally. So there was a day where I just started writing everything down, everything that I did, stupid things, anger, out of anger, out of spite, out of hate. And I just wrote them down. And when I finally wrote them down, I had this list. Man, it felt like that was gone. Like that emotion was just, it was right there. It was set aside. And so I compiled that into a story. And as you read through this, you can actually like feel the hatred in the story, what I was becoming as a person, what I felt, what had happened to me. And, you know, naturally it doesn't end well. But so, you know, if I took a left turn instead of a right turn and straightened my life out, what could have happened? You know, what potentially could have happened. So there are those kinds of aspects as well, where I took a piece of myself, my life, my story, and I put it into that, into a historical fiction aspect of it.
Okay. Well, sounds intriguing. And the book is available where?
It's available on Amazon. It's also available at UNX magazine, which, you know, big thanks to Margie and her team helping me out with this, kind of guiding me through it. This was my first published book. I've had stories published before, but never to this extent. So she helped guide me through this to an extreme. And I'm excited to be working with her more. I actually just submitted the next volume. So you can find it at UNX as well. Or if you're browsing our website, ironcityparanormal.org, it's also available on the website.
Okay, ironcityparanormal.org.
That's right.
And what about Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon. It's also for sale on Amazon. I can get you a direct link to it, but you can certainly find it there by searching "All Monsters Are Human."
Is there an ebook version there?
There is not. That is one thing that we're working on, hoping to do, as well as an audiobook. That's kind of next steps for this one.
Okay. Sounds like you got that all planned out quite well then.
Planned, yes. The plans are still in motion, so, you know, we're getting there.
We talked earlier about doing a book about some of your true stories about some of your investigations.
Yeah, and, you know,
the history behind that.
I would love to. Talking about that, you know, the magazine is definitely an outlet that we're able to publish our investigations, places that we go, and a way to document things, a way to share these places and our stories. And yeah, that's kind of the next logical step, right? Is to get all these things in one book, and all the research that we have done, all the hours that we've put into with our evidence, all of the experience that we've had happen to us that is truly unexplainable, and really remarkable. That's kind of a logical step there, is to put all of those things into a book. And I would absolutely love to. I think that's a great idea, a great way to proceed with some of these things.
The Blennerhassett itself, for such a high-class hotel, which I think you'll agree it is, fantastic restaurant, nice little bar.
They've got it all there.
The rooms are outstanding. Yeah. And I know they were expecting a whole lot less people than what showed up that first year.
Yeah, I know talking to Adra, who she was kind of just playing it by ear and going with it. You know, she did a fantastic job putting the entire event together, as well as kind of rolling with the punches when all of these people started showing up and it was unexpected. It was, you know, she did a great job of kind of corralling people and putting extra people on. The second year we went back, we actually ended up getting a talking spot, a presentation spot to talk about our investigation from the year before. So I don't know if that's the plan coming up this next one, but I do know that you know, the hotel itself is fantastic. You know, their meeting space, where they like the ballroom and everything is just, it's wonderful. I'd love to go to some other type of event there that's not paranormal to see how they put these shows on. But yeah, there's a lot of stories that go with this place. And if you really think about it, the age of the town itself, you know, people don't usually put those things together. And that hotel has a lot of history, and there seems to be a lot of things that are just still, you know, to be discovered. Sure. And that's really our hope with sharing a lot of these stories, is that maybe somebody can either pick up where we left off, or someone can. Actually, a great example of that is after our presentation, we met with one of the people, one of the workers there that was just putting everything together. He was just helping out with, you know, getting the video and audio set up. and he had seen some things. He had seen some of these shadows and kind of gave us some tips as to some hot spots, which ultimately did kind of lead us to walking down that hallway where we captured those figures, and wouldn't have been things that we thought about without hearing them directly from him. And so helping us document things and share these stories, that's what it's all about. And I said it before, but this is a way to keep history alive. And that's really the most important part of some of these things is to keep these places going, to keep the knowledge and the historical facts alive and shared and known, especially within those areas, because they're smaller areas, but then you start sharing them, you get them out to a wider audience, and it's like, it'll bring more people in, bring more stories in, bring more everything. And that's what it deserves.
The Blennerhassett really embraces the ghost stories, though, for such a fancy,
it certainly does
place. They really like to put it in your face when you get there.
If you think about it, it's a selling point. It can be, especially in the day and age that we're at now. We experience things in Pittsburgh. Like, we say that we travel all over, mainly because downtown Pittsburgh doesn't like to do these things. Tell you a story about the Omni William Penn, one of the fancier, classier hotels in Pittsburgh. We started asking questions about getting in there after hearing about a bunch of ghost stories. We reached a point where we were about to get in. We were about to make plans, set a date. We reached a point where one of the concierge got back to us, and his simple response was, "This place isn't haunted. You don't know what you're talking about. There's never anything that happened here." Like, okay, I guess it happens, right? Yeah. A week later, they hosted a paranormal convention. Like, are you kidding me?
Really?
Yeah, I mean, and I get not wanting to embrace it and not wanting to be known for some things. Like, we've investigated some like Airbnbs, especially out in Gettysburg. I won't drop any names or anything, but places that the ghosts are a big selling point at and would bring people and business in, and they didn't want to be known for it, which is respectable in a certain aspect.
I understand it, but that is what brings people in.
Exactly. You don't want to be known for it with a certain clientele, and I understand that, but to be known for something else, to bring in more business, more interest in the word out there, I don't understand why it's a bad thing.
Independence, Missouri has a haunted Marshall's house and jail. They were connected.
Okay.
And I'll never forget the guy who was running it, who invited us into ghost hunting. He said his people, the managers and the board of directors, come to him demanding, "Why are you wasting time with ghost stories?" And he said, "I'll get more people through that door with a ghost story than a history lesson."
No doubt. No doubt at all. That's 100%. You're right.
Well, Derrick, thanks. I want to put that book cover up one more time.
All thank you for having me.
Which I believe. Well, before you leave,
yes,
let's talk about the Onyx magazine, folks. When you join the Onyx network, go to the front page, drop down. There's some paper names to fill out, whatever, and you become a member. You get, first off, the blog, which comes to you, and like I said, guys, that's been burning up lately with the Tic Tacs, the Bigfoot cryptids, the Mothman being seen over the Mississippi River or Missouri River or something.
Yeah, it's blowing up right now. Absolutely. It's huge.
Things are going great. Yeah, and you're right there in that area, especially when you're in the Blennerhassett, because it's got its own history.
That's right, that entire area. You're right.
Of the Mothman. But you got that. You get the newsletter, which tells you what's coming out, what stories you might want to see on all the network. We got a lot of shows on this. I'm waiting for Iron City to get one.
Yeah, right. But, they're great too. Everything's incredible. It's all well done.
Yes.
It's all very, and I write for it, but to be completely, I don't get anything out of it aside from me sharing our stories. But that's the point. And they're all fantastic.
Yeah, your stories are really well done too.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We put a lot of time and work into the actual research aspect of this, and to get these places that we investigate and go to out there.
And that, without that, you got a campfire tale. So
absolutely
it's
right.
Awesome. Also, guys, you do get the magazine, and that comes out, like I said, once every couple of months now, I think. But this particular one on the left, the darker one, I had 2 stories in that one on the Battleship North Carolina and one on Legends of Halloween. And I'm talking Legends of Halloween, not the Friday the 13th or stuff. But when I was a little kid, the rumors flying around was cults were going to kidnap blonde-haired, blue-eyed children and sacrifice them. There was the apples with razor blades in them, drugs in the candy. All of those legends had a little tiny piece of truth in them, blown way out of proportion. And that's kind of the story I went on that. More recently, we've had dolls. God, I hate dolls. Derrick, I don't know about you, but dolls, I've dealt with demonics. I have dealt with people with guns trying to kill me, but dolls freak me out.
I don't know if you can actually see one right over my shoulder here, but we do have one, right there.
Yeah, I see it. I've got a voodoo doll over here, but I bought it at a cheap shop in New Orleans.
Not the same, yeah.
Not the same. And then, of course, this one most recently, I had an article called Last Call at the Devil's Diner. That is the old Tri-County truck stop on Route 66 outside of St. Louis. I've been in there many times. I was on the first ghost hunt ever there and the third, and went back many times after that. Recently got hit by a tornado and destroyed. So that story, that's the last story from the Tri-County truck stop.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about with saving the history and keeping it alive. That's all we have now.
That's it. Derrick, what articles do you have? You had one just this last month, I know.
Yeah, so we actually share a bunch of our investigations. You actually just had one up. The one with the doll was Greene County.
Yes.
Yep. Greene County Historical Museum is actually up there. What we do is we take the history of our locations, combine them with the investigation itself and kind of what the outcome is, and we'll share it up there. We just recently had the Mars train station that we had put together and shared. And, I could take an entire show up of yours talking about that place, because that one hit us hard. Probably the best Estes method session that we had ever had, making contact with a man there that no one knows. So finally got a name to him. And it's incredible the kind of things that you can find at these small, lesser known places.
Yes, and we'll get Iron City back here, you and your partner, or some of them, and we'll talk about that place specifically. If we can do an hour on that place, we'll do it.
Easily.
Derrick, thanks for being a guest on here. We're going to both back on out. Stick around for me if you would.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Again, thanks for coming on. It's fun talking to someone with this much experience.
Yeah, well, it's always fun to discuss this. It's not one of those things that just kind of comes up first thing when you meet somebody or at a party. It's like, hey, I hunt ghosts. But so no, I could spend hours talking about this kind of stuff.
I know how you feel. So for all the folks out there, and Derrick, with you and your team, y'all stay spooked, okay?
Thank you.